Hi, I'm Zane from U.S. Immigration Desk, and thank you for trusting me. Breaking news for millions of immigrants in the United States. USCIS has just announced massive changes that could transform your immigration status, bring hope to undocumented families, and potentially offer the legal protection you've been waiting for years. If you or someone you know has been living in uncertainty, afraid of deportation, separated from family, or stuck in endless processing delays, what I'm about to share with you could change everything. This June 2025 could mark a historic turning point in U.S. immigration policy, with new proposals, faster processing, and real pathways to stability. Don't click away, because every single detail I reveal in this video could directly impact your future in America. Welcome back to U.S. Immigration Desk, your most trusted source for immigration news, visa updates, policy changes, and everything you need to know about living, working, and building your future in the United States. I'm Zane with U.S. Immigration Desk, and today we're covering what could be the most significant immigration developments in years. From a major new legislative proposal called the Dignity Act that could provide legal status to millions of long-term undocumented immigrants to President Trump's reported executive order, protecting essential workers to USCIS dramatically speeding up case processing and scheduling thousands of interviews after years of delays. This video contains information that could affect you, your family, or people you care about. Whether you're undocumented, waiting for a green card, preparing for an asylum interview, or supporting family members through the immigration process, you need to understand what's happening right now. Make sure you subscribe to U.S. Immigration Desk and hit that notification bell so you never miss critical updates that could impact your immigration journey. Let's dive into these groundbreaking developments. The first major development that has the immigration community buzzing is the potential executive order from President Trump that would protect undocumented workers in essential industries. According to sources close to the administration, there have been serious discussions about issuing an executive order specifically aimed at protecting undocumented individuals who work in critical sectors of the American economy. The industries being discussed include agriculture and farm work, where undocumented workers make up a significant portion of the labor force that harvests the food Americans eat every day. Hospitality and tourism, including hotels, restaurants, and service industries that are facing severe labor shortages. Construction and infrastructure, where skilled and unskilled labor from immigrant communities is essential. And healthcare support services, including home care, nursing assistance, and facility maintenance. The rationale behind this potential executive order is both economic and practical. These industries are experiencing unprecedented labor shortages that are affecting their ability to operate efficiently. American citizens are simply not filling these positions in sufficient numbers, and employers are desperately seeking solutions. At the same time, there is growing recognition even among conservative policymakers that millions of undocumented workers have been contributing to the U.S. economy for years or even decades, paying sales taxes, property taxes through rent, and in many cases, even payroll taxes through fake or borrowed Social Security numbers. They have established lives, raised American children, and become integral parts of their communities. While the details of this potential executive order remain confidential and nothing has been officially announced, the very fact that it's being discussed at the highest levels of government represents a significant shift in thinking. For years, the focus has been almost exclusively on enforcement, deportation, and border security. Now there appears to be recognition that practical solutions are needed for the millions of people already here who are doing essential work. If such an executive order were to be issued, it could potentially provide temporary protected status, work authorization, or deferred action for certain categories of workers. This wouldn't be a pathway to citizenship or even permanent legal status, but it could provide protection from deportation and the ability to work legally, which would be life-changing for millions of families. However, it's important to manage expectations. This is still in the discussion phase. There's no guarantee it will happen, and even if it does, there will likely be strict eligibility requirements, application processes, and limitations on who qualifies. But the fact that it's being considered at all is encouraging and suggests that pragmatic voices are being heard in the immigration debate. Now let's talk about the second and perhaps even more significant development, the Dignity Act being introduced by Republican Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar. This is not the first time Salazar has proposed this legislation, but she has announced that on June 25, 2025, she will present what she calls her final and strongest version of the bill. Salazar, who represents a district in Florida with a large Hispanic population, has been working on this proposal for several years, and she believes this version has the best chance of gaining the bipartisan support needed to actually pass into law. So what exactly is the Dignity Act and who would benefit from it? The core of the legislation is to provide legal status to undocumented immigrants who meet specific criteria. The main eligibility requirements include having lived in the United States for at least 10 consecutive years, which shows long-term roots and commitment to the country. Having filed tax returns consistently, demonstrating financial responsibility and contribution to society. Maintaining good moral conduct with no serious criminal history, no felony convictions, and no significant misdemeanors. Being employed or able to demonstrate means of financial support so you're not dependent on public benefits. And potentially paying fines or fees as part of the application process to acknowledge that you entered or stayed in the country illegally. If you meet these requirements and your application is approved, you would receive what Salazar calls dignity status. This is a legal status that allows you to live and work in the United States without fear of deportation. You would receive work authorization, a social security number for employment purposes, and the ability to travel outside the United States and return legally. This last point is huge for people who haven't seen family members in their home countries for 10, 15, or 20 years, because leaving would mean never being able to return. With dignity status, you could visit sick relatives, attend important family events, or take vacations without risking everything you've built in America. However, and this is the controversial part, dignity status does not provide a pathway to citizenship. You would not be able to become a U.S. citizen through this program. You would not be eligible to vote in elections. You would not be able to sponsor certain family members for immigration benefits that citizens can sponsor. Your status would need to be renewed periodically, and you would need to continue meeting the requirements to maintain it. Why did Salazar design the bill this way? Her reasoning is entirely strategic and political. She believes that the biggest obstacle to immigration reform over the past 2 decades has been the debate over citizenship. Many Republicans and conservative Americans are willing to accept that undocumented immigrants who have been here for many years, worked hard, paid taxes, and stayed out of trouble deserve to stay and work legally. But they draw the line at providing a pathway to citizenship. They see that as rewarding people who broke the law with the ultimate prize of American citizenship. By removing the citizenship component, Salazar hopes to remove the biggest objection and gain Republican support for the bill. She's also hoping that some Democrats, while disappointed that citizenship isn't included, will support the bill because it's better than nothing and provides real meaningful relief to millions of people. Salazar has been quoted saying this is about giving people dignity, security, and peace of mind, even if it's not everything they hoped for. She argues that living legally without fear of deportation is infinitely better than living in the shadows, unable to travel, unable to fully participate in society, and always worried that you or a family member could be arrested and deported at any moment. The reaction to the Dignity Act has been mixed. Immigrant advocacy groups are divided. Some praise it as a realistic compromise that could actually pass and help millions of people. Others criticize it as inadequate because it doesn't provide a pathway to citizenship and creates a permanent underclass of people who can work and pay taxes but never become full members of American society. Some worry about the 10-year requirement, pointing out that it excludes more recent arrivals, including people who fled violence or disaster in their home countries in the last 5 or 10 years. Others are concerned about the emphasis on tax filing, which could be difficult for people who have worked in cash-based jobs or didn't know they were supposed to file taxes even without legal status. Republicans are also divided. Some moderate Republicans, especially those from districts with large immigrant populations, support the bill as a sensible solution. But hardline conservatives oppose any form of amnesty or legal status for undocumented immigrants, even without citizenship. They argue it encourages future illegal immigration by showing that if you stay long enough, you'll eventually be rewarded with legal status. Despite these concerns and opposition, Salazar is optimistic. She points out that the political climate has shifted. There's more recognition that mass deportation of 11 or 12 million people is neither practical nor desirable. There's more awareness that many undocumented immigrants are essential workers, family members of U.S. citizens, and long-term community members. And there's more willingness to find middle ground solutions rather than remaining stuck in gridlock. Whether the Dignity Act will pass remains to be seen. It will need to go through committee hearings, floor votes in the House of Representatives, passage in the Senate, which is always the harder challenge, and ultimately the president's signature. But the fact that a Republican congresswoman is championing this bill and believes she has a path to passage is significant. If you would potentially qualify for the Dignity Act based on the criteria I described, here's what you should do. Start gathering documentation now. Collect evidence that you've been in the United States for at least 10 years. This could include rent receipts, utility bills, bank statements, employment records, school records for your children, medical records, church or community organization membership, anything with dates that shows your continuous presence. Get your tax situation in order. If you haven't been filing tax returns, consult with a tax professional or a nonprofit that helps immigrants with tax issues. There are ways to file back taxes. And having several years of tax returns will be crucial if this bill passes. Make sure you have no outstanding criminal issues. If you have any arrests or convictions, even old ones, consult with an immigration attorney to understand how they might affect your eligibility. Stay informed about the bill's progress. Follow U.S. Immigration Desk, where we'll provide updates as soon as there's news about committee hearings, votes, or changes to the bill. Connect with immigrant advocacy organizations in your community. Groups like United We Dream, National Immigration Law Center, local immigrant rights coalitions, and others will provide information, support, and potentially help with applications if the bill passes. Don't fall for scams. Unfortunately, whenever there's talk of immigration reform, scammers come out of the woodwork promising to help you for high fees. Be very cautious about who you trust. Work only with licensed attorneys or accredited representatives from nonprofit organizations. And finally, be patient but hopeful. Legislative processes take time. Even if the Dignity Act is introduced on June 25th, it could be months or even longer before it becomes law, if it passes at all. But this is the most serious legislative attempt at immigration reform we've seen in years, and it deserves attention and cautious optimism. Now let's move to the third major development: USCIS dramatically accelerating immigration case processing. For years, one of the biggest frustrations for immigrants and their families has been the endless waiting. Asylum applications that sat in limbo for 3, 4, 5 years or longer. Family-based petitions where spouses or children were separated for years waiting for interviews that never seemed to come. People who did everything right, filed all the paperwork, paid all the fees, but just couldn't get a decision or even an interview scheduled. This has caused immense hardship, emotional stress, financial strain, and in some cases, real danger for people waiting in unsafe situations while their cases languished in the system. But there's encouraging news. USCIS has announced and is implementing significant efforts to speed up processing times and reduce the massive backlog of cases. This is not just a promise or a plan, it's actually happening right now. Immigration lawyers and applicants across the country are reporting that they're receiving interview notices for cases that have been pending for years. Field offices in major cities are scheduling interviews at unprecedented rates. What's driving this acceleration? Several factors are at work. First, USCIS has been authorized to hire and has been actively hiring hundreds of new asylum officers, immigration services officers, and support staff. These new hires are being trained and deployed to field offices around the country to increase capacity for conducting interviews and making decisions. Second, USCIS leadership has made reducing backlogs a priority. They've implemented new efficiency measures, streamlined certain processes, and focused resources on categories with the longest wait times. Third, there's been political and public pressure to address the dysfunction in the immigration system. Both humanitarian advocates and business groups have been pushing for faster processing, and those voices are being heard. Fourth, USCIS has been cracking down on frivolous applications and fraud, which allows them to focus resources on legitimate cases. They're quickly denying applications that are clearly fraudulent or have no merit, which frees up officers to work on real cases. The results are visible in the data and in real experiences. Field offices in New York, which handles a huge volume of cases, has dramatically increased interview scheduling, particularly for marriage-based green card applications and asylum cases. Houston, serving a large immigrant population from Latin America and beyond, is seeing similar increases. Los Angeles, one of the busiest immigration offices in the country, is finally making progress on cases that have been pending since before the COVID pandemic. Northern New Jersey, which serves the New York metropolitan area, is catching up on years of backlog. New Orleans and the surrounding region are also seeing faster processing. These cities are just examples. The acceleration is happening nationwide, though some offices are moving faster than others depending on their specific backlog situation and staffing levels. If you have a pending application, especially an asylum application or a family-based petition for a green card, what should you do? First, make absolutely certain that USCIS has your current address. If you've moved since filing your application and didn't update your address, you could miss your interview notice, which would be disastrous. You can update your address online through your USCIS account or by filing Form AR11. Second, check your case status regularly online using your receipt number. Log in at least once a week to see if there are any updates. Third, make sure your email and phone number on file are current and check them regularly. USCIS sometimes sends notifications electronically. Fourth, start preparing now even before you get an interview notice. Gather and organize all your documentation. Review your application to remember what you submitted and prepare to answer questions about it. Fifth, if your case is marriage-based, sit down with your spouse and go through preparation seriously. Review each other's information. Practice answering questions, and make sure you can demonstrate that your marriage is genuine. Let me talk more about marriage-based interview preparation, because USCIS officers have been trained to identify fraudulent marriages, and they ask detailed questions to determine if your relationship is real. You need to be prepared to answer questions about how you met, where and when your first date was, how the relationship progressed, when you decided to get married, details about your wedding, who attended, where you went for honeymoon if applicable. Your daily life together, your living arrangements, your bedroom, what the first thing you see from your bedroom window is, your bathroom, what brands of products you use, your kitchen, who cooks, what you typically eat, your routines, who gets up first, who goes to bed first, what you do on weekends, your finances, whether you have joint bank accounts, who pays which bills, how you split expenses, your future plans, whether you plan to have children, where you plan to live long-term, what your career goals are, and your families, how your families feel about the marriage, how often you see them, what holidays you spend together. These questions might seem intrusive or trivial, but USCIS uses them to verify that you actually live together as a married couple and aren't just using marriage to get a green card. Some tips for marriage interview success. Be honest. Don't try to make up answers if you don't know something. It's okay to say you're not sure or you don't remember. Inconsistencies between your answers and your spouse's answers raise red flags. Be consistent. Your story should match your spouse's story on all important points. Review everything together beforehand. Be detailed. General answers seem rehearsed. Specific details seem genuine. Don't just say, "We like watching TV together." Say, "We usually watch cooking shows on Saturday mornings while having coffee." Bring updated evidence. Even if you submitted documents with your application, bring recent evidence to the interview. Things dated within the last few months, like joint bank statements, bills addressed to both of you at your address, photos together, including recent ones, and ones showing different occasions and locations. affidavits from friends or family who know your relationship, receipts from trips or activities you did together, anything that proves you're genuinely building a life together. Stay calm and confident. Being nervous is normal, but if you're truthful and prepared, you have nothing to fear. Officers can tell the difference between nervous but honest answers and evasive or dishonest ones. This acceleration in processing is genuinely good news and represents a real commitment from USCIS to address the backlog that has caused so much suffering. However, it's important to understand that faster processing means faster decisions, which could be positive or negative. If your case is strong and well documented, the faster processing is great news. You'll get your interview, make your case, and hopefully get approval much sooner than you would have previously. But if your case has weaknesses, inconsistencies, or problems, those will be identified more quickly too, and you could receive a denial. This is why preparation is so critical. Make sure your application is as strong as possible, that you have all necessary supporting evidence, and that you're ready to convincingly demonstrate your eligibility. If you have any doubts about your case, consult with a qualified immigration attorney before your interview. So to summarize these three major developments. First, President Trump is reportedly considering an executive order that would protect undocumented workers in essential industries. This is still in discussion phase, and nothing is certain, but it represents a potential shift toward practical solutions for the millions of people already here contributing to the economy. Second, Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar will introduce the Dignity Act on June 25, 2025. This bill would provide legal status, though not citizenship, to undocumented immigrants who have been in the U.S. for at least 10 years, have paid taxes, and have maintained good conduct. The bill has a real chance of passing because it's designed as a bipartisan compromise, though it's controversial for excluding a pathway to citizenship. Third, USCIS is dramatically speeding up case processing, hiring more officers, scheduling thousands of interviews, and finally making progress on the years-long backlog. This is great news for people with pending applications, but it also means you need to be prepared because your interview could come sooner than expected. What should you take away from all this? First, there is real movement on immigration issues. After years of gridlock and dysfunction, things are actually happening. This doesn't mean everything will be fixed overnight or that every problem will be solved, but there are genuine efforts at reform and improvement. Second, if you could potentially benefit from any of these developments, start preparing now. Gather your documents, get your tax situation in order, stay informed, and be ready to act when opportunities arise. Third, be cautious, but hopeful. Don't fall for scams or pay money to people promising guaranteed results. Work with reputable attorneys or nonprofit organizations, but also don't be so cynical that you miss real opportunities. Fourth, stay connected to reliable information sources like U.S. Immigration Desk, where we provide accurate, timely updates on immigration policy and processing. Fifth, if you know others who could benefit from this information, share it with them. Immigration affects millions of families, and information is power. The coming weeks and months could be pivotal for U.S. immigration policy. June 25th, when the Dignity Act is introduced, could be a historic day. The processing acceleration at USCIS could mean your long wait is finally over. The potential executive order could provide protection you desperately need. We don't know exactly how everything will unfold, but there is more reason for hope now than there has been in years. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay engaged. If you found this video helpful and informative, please give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone who needs this information. The YouTube algorithm will show this video to more people who need to see it if you engage with it. Subscribe to U.S. Immigration Desk for regular updates on immigration news, visa processes, policy changes, and everything affecting immigrants in the United States. We're committed to providing you with accurate, detailed, and timely information to help you navigate the complex immigration system. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about these developments. Are you optimistic about the Dignity Act? Do you have a pending case with USCIS? What has your experience been? Your comments help build our community and provide valuable perspectives. If you would like to receive more daily updates about U.S. immigration, visas, citizenship, and travel, you are welcome to stay connected here at U.S. Immigration Desk. Thank you so much for watching U.S. Immigration Desk. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to immigration. Stay informed, stay hopeful, and keep working toward your American dream. The path isn't always easy, but millions of people have successfully navigated it. And with the right information and preparation, you can too. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video on U.S. Immigration Desk, where we'll continue bringing you the latest and most important immigration news and information.